The invitation to my brother's graduation dinner came via group text, celebrating Michael's MBA graduation from Wharton. Saturday 6 p.m. at the Cambridge Room. Dress code, business formal. Let's make this special for our graduate. I read it from my lab at Anderson Biomedical Research Institute, where I just finished reviewing data from our latest clinical trial. The results were extraordinary. Our gene therapy treatment for pancreatic cancer showed a 78% remission rate in stage 3 patients. If the phase 3 trials held, we'd revolutionize cancer treatment within 2 years. My research director, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, knocked on my office door. Dr. Anderson, the Nobel Committee's liaison, called again. They need your acceptance speech draft by next week. I'll have it ready. Also, Harvard's president wants to confirm the commencement keynote. You're still scheduled for June 8th, correct? Yes, that works. Yuki smiled. Your family must be so proud. Nobel Prize at 33, keynote speaker at Harvard, $3.1 billion valuation on the company. That's remarkable. I didn't tell her the truth, that my family had no idea about any of it. To them, I was Sophia Anderson, the daughter who'd dropped out of Harvard 11 years ago. The family disappointment who'd thrown away a prestigious education to find herself. The black sheep who worked in some lab somewhere, doing God knows what. They'd stopped asking about my work years ago. Started when I was 22 in my junior year at Harvard studying molecular biology. I'd been conducting research with Professor Liu on genetic markers for pancreatic cancer when we discovered something extraordinary. A specific mutation that made certain cancer cells vulnerable to a gene therapy approach that no one had tried before. The research consumed me. I spent 80-hour weeks in the lab missing classes, letting my grades slip. When Professor Liu suggested we pursue the research full-time, possibly starting our own lab, I faced a choice. Finish my Harvard degree and do conventional academic research, or drop out and chase a breakthrough that could save millions of lives. I chose the breakthrough. My family was horrified. Mom cried for a week. Dad stopped speaking to me for a month. My brother Michael, then a high school senior, told his friends his sister had wasted her Harvard education. I tried to explain. I showed them the research, the potential, the opportunity. They didn't want to hear it. You're 3 semesters from a Harvard degree, Mom had said. Do you know how many people would kill for that opportunity? This research could save lives, I'd argued. Research you could do after graduation, Dad countered, with a degree to fall back on. But I couldn't wait. The research window was narrow. Other labs were starting to explore similar territory. If we didn't move fast, someone else would make the discovery first. So I dropped out. Used my small inheritance from my grandmother, $50,000, to rent lab space and buy equipment. Professor Liu came with me, and together we founded Anderson Biomedical Research. The first 3 years were brutal. Living in a tiny apartment, eating ramen, pouring every dollar into research. My family thought I was wasting my life. They stopped inviting me to family events. When they did see me, every conversation became a lecture about going back to school. Then we had our first breakthrough. The gene therapy approach worked in mice. Complete tumor regression in 85% of test subjects. We published in Nature. Suddenly, venture capital firms were interested. By year 5, we'd raised $40 million in funding and were in human trials. By year 7, we had FDA approval for our first treatment. By year 9, we'd gone public and the company was valued at $800 million. Now, at 33, Anderson Biomedical Research Institute held patents on 17 different gene therapy treatments. We'd cured diseases that were previously fatal. Our research had saved an estimated 150,000 lives. The company valuation was $3.1 billion. And 6 months ago I'd won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine. My family still thought I was a dropout working in a lab. I'd tried to tell them, especially after the Nobel announcement. I'd called Mom, started to explain about Stockholm, about the ceremony. She'd cut me off. That's nice, honey, but I'm planning Michael's graduation party. Can we talk later? We never talked later. So I stopped trying. If they wanted to believe I was a failure, let them. I had patients to save and diseases to cure. But Michael's graduation dinner? I'd go. Family obligation and all that. Saturday arrived. I dressed in a simple navy suit, professional but understated. No flashy jewelry, no designer labels. Just Sophia the dropout, making an appearance at her successful brother's celebration. I drove to the Cambridge room in my practical Subaru, parking among the luxury cars. The restaurant was elegant. Dark wood leather booths, the kind of place where business deals happened over expensive whiskey. The private dining room was already full when I arrived. Mom and Dad sat at the head of the table, beaming with pride. Michael sat beside them in a new suit, his Wharton MBA diploma probably already framed at home. His fiancée Jessica was there, along with aunts, uncles, cousins, and several of Dad's business associates. I was seated at the far end naturally. "Sophia." Mom called out, her tone overly bright. "You made it. We weren't sure your work would let you get away." "I made time," I said simply. "That's good. Family's important." He turned back to Michael. "Tell everyone about your job offer again." "Goldman Sachs." Michael launched into the story I'd already heard 3 times via family group texts. Investment banking, 6-figure salary, signing bonus, fast track to vice president. Everyone applauded. Dad practically glowed with pride. "That's my boy," Dad said. "Wharton MBA, top-tier firm set for life. That's what a real education gets you." The jab was subtle but clear. Real education. Not like Sophia's dropout status. Dinner was ordered, expensive steaks and aged wine. Conversation flowed around Michael's achievements, his bright future, the doors his Wharton degree would open. I ate quietly, checking my phone occasionally. The Nobel Committee had sent another email about the acceptance speech. Harvard's commencement office confirmed the keynote logistics. My research director forwarded the latest clinical trial data. "Sophia, could you put your phone away?" Mom said sharply. "This is Michael's celebration." "Sorry." Uncle Paul, Dad's business partner, leaned forward. "Sophia, what exactly is it you do these days?" "Still working in that lab?" "Yes." "Doing what exactly?" "Medical research. Gene therapy." "Like testing on mice and things?" Cousin Jennifer asked. "Among other things." "That's..." Uncle Paul searched for a kind word. "That's nice. Helping scientists with their work." I smiled and didn't correct him. Dad jumped in. "Sophia dropped out of Harvard in her junior year to work in a research lab. We'd hoped she'd go back and finish her degree, but..." He shrugged. "Some people take longer to find their path." "I'm sure she's doing important work," Jessica said kindly, though her tone suggested she pitied me. "Not as important as saving lives through financial services," Michael joked, though there was an edge to it. "I mean, medical research is fine, but real impact comes from capital allocation and market efficiency." Several people laughed. I took a sip of water. The toasts began. Dad stood first, raising his glass. "To Michael," he said warmly, "who showed dedication, discipline, and commitment. Who finished what he started. Who understood that a Harvard or Wharton degree opens doors that nothing else can. Who made his family proud." The implication hung heavy. Unlike his sister. Everyone toasted. Michael beamed. Then Mom stood. "I want to add something," she said, her voice catching with emotion. "Michael, watching you graduate today reminded me of something important. It reminded me of the value of education, of following through, of not giving up when things get hard." She glanced at me. "While your brother graduated with honors from Wharton, building on his Harvard undergraduate degree, his sister dropped out. Left Harvard with 3 semesters to go. Threw away an opportunity most people would die for." The table went quiet. "Sophia is the family disappointment," Mom continued, and I could hear the pain in her voice. Genuine pain, not cruelty. She actually believed this. "We love her, of course. But Michael, you showed us what success looks like. What happens when you commit to something and see it through." Everyone nodded solemnly. I saw pity in their eyes. Poor Sophia, the dropout, the failure, the cautionary tale. Uncle Paul raised his glass. "To Michael, who made the right choices." That's when my phone rang. It was sitting on the table, face up. The caller ID showed, Harvard University, Office of the President. I looked at the phone, then at my family. This was the moment. I could let it go to voicemail, maintain my privacy, let them keep their illusions. Or I could answer it. I picked up the phone and pressed speaker. "Dr. Anderson," a cultured voice filled the private dining room. "This is President Williams from Harvard University. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time." The table went silent. "Not at all, President Williams," I said calmly. "I'm at a family dinner." "You're on speaker." "Wonderful. I wanted to personally confirm your keynote address for our commencement ceremony on June 8th. The title is From Discovery to Impact: How Basic Research Transforms Medicine, correct? That's correct. Excellent. We're honored to have you. Your Nobel Prize research has fundamentally changed how we approach cancer treatment. Our medical school has completely restructured its gene therapy curriculum based on your work. Mom's wine glass was frozen halfway to her lips. President Williams continued, we also wanted to discuss the honorary doctorate we'll be conferring. Given that you left us before completing your undergraduate degree to pursue your groundbreaking research, it seems fitting that we honor you with a doctorate in medical science. You've brought more prestige to Harvard through your work than most graduates could in a lifetime. That's very generous, I said. Not at all. Dr. Anderson, you dropped out of Harvard to change the world. And you succeeded. The Anderson Biomedical Research Institute has saved over 150,000 lives with your treatments. You're the distinguished alumna we point to when people ask about the impact of Harvard research. Dad had gone pale. I'll have my office send over the final ceremony details, President Williams said. And Dr. Anderson? Congratulations again on the Nobel Prize. Stockholm's loss is our gain. I'm glad you chose our commencement over their summer symposium. Thank you, President Williams. I'll see you on June 8th. I ended the call. The silence was absolute. Then Dad whispered, You dropped out to start your research lab? Yes. The Nobel Prize, Mom said faintly. You won the Nobel Prize? 6 months ago. In physiology or medicine. For my work on gene therapy approaches to pancreatic cancer. Michael's mouth was opening and closing like a fish. You're giving the keynote at Harvard's commencement? Yes. They asked me 3 months ago. I accepted 2 months ago. I'd planned to invite you all, but... I gestured at the table. You were busy with Michael's graduation planning. Uncle Paul pulled out his phone, frantically typing. His face went white. Sophia Anderson. Nobel Prize winner. Founder and CEO of Anderson Biomedical Research Institute. Company valuation $3.1 billion. 17 patents in gene therapy. Featured in Time magazine's 100 most influential people. He looked up. You're that Dr. Anderson? Yes. But we thought you worked for a research lab. As like a technician or something. I founded the lab, I said calmly. 11 years ago with Professor Liu from Harvard and $50,000 from Grandma's inheritance. We started in a rented facility with second-hand equipment. Now we have 847 employees across 3 campuses and partnerships with every major medical school in the country. Jessica was staring at her phone. Michael, your sister is famous. There are articles about her everywhere. She's been on the cover of Nature, Science, The Lancet. Oh my God, she met with the president last year about healthcare policy. That was about expanding access to gene therapy treatments, I explained. We've been working with the FDA to streamline approval processes. Mom finally found her voice. Why didn't you tell us? I tried. Repeatedly. For 11 years. We would have listened. Would you? I looked at her directly. Mom, I called you the day I won the Nobel Prize. You cut me off to talk about Michael's graduation party planning. I sent you the Nature article about our breakthrough treatment 5 years ago. You texted back, that's nice honey, hope you're eating well. I invited you to our company's IPO celebration. You said you couldn't make it because of Dad's golf tournament. The table was silent. Every time I tried to share my work, my achievements, my life, you dismissed it, I continued. Because in your minds I was the dropout. The failure. The disappointment. Nothing I said could change that narrative because you weren't willing to see me differently. Dad's voice was rough. The $3.1 billion valuation. That's real. As of Thursday's closing price, the company is valued at $3.14 billion. My personal stake is approximately 38%, so my net worth on paper is around $1.2 billion. Though most of that is tied up in company equity and reinvested in research. Michael made a strangled sound. You're a billionaire? On paper. I don't actually have $1 billion in my bank account. Most of my wealth is in company stock, research facilities, equipment, and ongoing clinical trials. But still. Michael trailed off. Cousin Jennifer spoke up. Wait, I saw something about this. Didn't you just donate $100 million to cancer research? $150 million, I corrected. Split between 3 research hospitals. It's important to fund the next generation of scientists. You just gave away $150 million? Uncle Paul said faintly. It's not giving away when it's investing in life-saving research. That funding will train young researchers, buy equipment, and support clinical trials that could cure diseases. Mom was crying now. Sophia, I don't understand. How did we get this so wrong? Because you saw what you expected to see, I said gently. You expected that dropping out of Harvard meant failure, so everything I did after that became evidence of failure in your eyes. You needed me to be the cautionary tale, the one who made the wrong choice, so Michael could be the one who made the right choice. That's not fair, Michael protested. Isn't it? I looked at my brother. Michael, you're a good person. You worked hard for your MBA. You should be proud of your Goldman Sachs offer. But all night, everyone has been comparing your success to my supposed failure. Your graduation was celebrated as proof that education matters, while my dropout status was proof that I wasted my opportunities. Because we didn't know, Dad started. You didn't want to know, I interrupted. You had your narrative. Sophia the dropout, Michael the success. It was simpler that way. Jessica was still scrolling through her phone. Dr. Anderson, it says here you've been nominated for the Breakthrough Prize, the Lasker Award, and the Canada Gairdner International Award. You've won all 3. Yes. And you've delivered keynote addresses at Johns Hopkins, MIT, Stanford. Among others. And you've testified before Congress 3 times about healthcare policy. 4 times. The 4th was a closed session, so it's not public record. Michael put his head in his hands. We've been so stupid. Not stupid, I said. Just limited in your vision. You assumed academic credentials were the only path to success. You assumed because I didn't finish my Harvard undergraduate degree that I'd failed. You never considered that I might have left to do something more important than getting a diploma. The gene therapy research, Dad said, understanding dawning. You couldn't wait. If you'd stayed to finish your degree, someone else would have made the discovery first. Exactly. I had a window of opportunity. I could either spend 18 months finishing coursework and writing papers about other people's research, or I could spend that time conducting my own groundbreaking research. I chose the research. And it worked, Mom whispered. It worked. Professor Liu and I developed the first successful gene therapy approach for pancreatic cancer. We published in Nature. We attracted funding. We built a company. We saved lives. And yes, Harvard eventually gave me credit for the work. They just did it with a keynote invitation and an honorary doctorate instead of an undergraduate diploma. Uncle Paul shook his head in wonder. You gave up a Harvard degree to start a billion-dollar company that saves lives. That's the most Harvard thing anyone could possibly do. Despite everything, I smiled. I suppose it is. The waiter appeared, uncertain whether to clear plates or leave us alone. The celebration dinner had become something else entirely. A reckoning. Dad stood up and walked around the table to me. He looked older, somehow diminished. Sophia, he said quietly, I owe you the biggest apology of my life. You do. I called you a disappointment. I told people you'd made the wrong choice. I held up Michael's conventional success as superior to your unconventional path. And all this time you were changing the world. Yes. Can you forgive me? I considered this. Eventually. But Dad, this isn't just about tonight. This is about 11 years of dismissal. 11 years of you treating my life's work as a phase. 11 years of implying I'd wasted my potential. You're right. Mom joined him, tears streaming down her face. Sophia, when you dropped out, I thought you were throwing your life away. I was so scared for you. I know. But you weren't throwing it away. You were building something extraordinary. Yes. Why didn't you fight harder to make us understand? Because you weren't ready to hear it, I said honestly. You were so invested in your idea of what success looked like, degrees, conventional careers, traditional paths, that you couldn't see alternative possibilities. I could have screamed my accomplishments from the rooftops and you would have found reasons to dismiss them. Michael finally spoke. I've been such an ass to you. Yes, you have. All those jokes about you finding yourself, or still figuring things out. All those times I offered to help you get a real job, through Dad's connections. And you were running a billion-dollar medical research company. Yes. I'm sorry. I appreciate that. Are we still invited to the wedding? He asked quietly. Jessica and we'd like you to be there. The real you, not the version we invented in our heads. I looked at my brother, really looked at him. He seemed smaller, somehow younger. The golden child realizing his shine came partly from standing next to a sister they'd deliberately dimmed. I'll come to your wedding, I said. On one condition. Anything. No more comparisons. No more using me as the cautionary tale to make yourself look better. No more lectures about conventional success. You live your life, I'll live mine, and we respect each other's choices. Deal. Jessica spoke up. Dr. Anderson, I'm getting my MBA at Wharton next year. Would you consider being a guest speaker? The entrepreneurship program would be honored to hear from you. Send me the details. I'll check my schedule. Uncle Paul cleared his throat. Sophia, my firm invests in biotech startups. Would you be willing to meet with some of our portfolio companies? They could benefit from your expertise. I consult occasionally. Have your office contact mine. It was surreal watching my family recalibrate in real time. The disappointment was now the most successful person in the room, and they were scrambling to adjust. Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and gasped. The group chat is exploding. Aunt Linda just posted an article about you. The whole family is. Oh my God, everyone is asking about you. Let them ask, I said. But they all think. Let them think whatever they've been thinking. I'm not responsible for other people's assumptions about my life. Dad sat down heavily. How do we fix this? How do we make up for 11 years of getting it wrong? You start by actually listening, I said. You start by being genuinely interested in my work, not because it's prestigious or successful, but because it matters to me. You start by respecting my choices even when they don't make sense to you. We can do that. Can you? Because Dad, you've spent this entire dinner celebrating Michael's choice to follow a conventional path. Can you celebrate my choice to abandon convention? Can you be proud of the dropout as well as the MBA? He was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'm already proud. I just didn't know there was something to be proud of. That's the problem, I said gently. You assumed that because I didn't finish Harvard there was nothing to be proud of. You never looked deeper. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Tanaka. Clinical trial results are in. 82% remission rate in the pancreatic cancer study. This is going to change everything. I smiled reading the message. Good news. Mom asked tentatively. Very good news. Our latest clinical trial exceeded expectations. We might have just developed a treatment that turns one of the deadliest cancers into a manageable condition. That's incredible, Jessica said. How many lives could that save? Pancreatic cancer kills about 50,000 people a year in the US alone. If this treatment gets FDA approval and becomes standard care, we could save tens of thousands of lives annually. Globally, the impact could be in the hundreds of thousands. The table was silent, absorbing the magnitude. And that's just one of our 17 treatments, I added. We're also working on gene therapies for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cystic fibrosis, and several rare genetic diseases. You're saving the world, Michael said quietly. I'm trying to. One disease at a time. Dad pulled out his phone, scrolling through articles about me. Sophia, this says you were the youngest person to ever receive the Nobel Prize in your category. Youngest woman, I corrected. There was one man who was slightly younger in the 1950s. And Harvard is giving you an honorary doctorate. Yes. Though frankly, the work matters more than the recognition. The doctorate is nice, but what really matters is that our treatments work. That patients go into remission. That families get more time together. Mom reached across the table and took my hand. I'm so sorry we didn't see you. The real you. I know. Can we come? To the Harvard commencement. I considered this. If you want to. But Mom, you need to understand, it's not about you getting to bask in my success. It's not about you finally having something to brag about to your friends. It's my moment, my achievement, and if you come to support me. Not to claim credit for raising me. She flinched but nodded. I understand. Do you? Because for 11 years, you've been ashamed of me. You've introduced me to people with apologies about my dropout status. You've treated my life as a failure. One good keynote speech doesn't erase that. You're right, she said quietly. And I don't expect you to forgive us immediately. But Sophia, please let us try. Let us get to know the brilliant, accomplished woman you've become. I looked around the table at my family, flawed, limited in their understanding but perhaps capable of growth. Here's what I need, I said. I need you to stop treating Michael's conventional success as superior to my unconventional success. I need you to stop offering me career advice when you don't understand my career. I need you to respect my choices even when they scare you. And I need you to acknowledge that sometimes the wrong path leads to the right destination. We can do that, Dad said. Prove it over time. Not with one apology at a dinner, but with consistent respect and genuine interest. Show me you value the dropout as much as the MBA graduate. Michael stood up. To Sophia, he said, raising his glass. Who had the courage to leave Harvard to change the world? Who saw possibility where we saw failure? Who built something extraordinary while we weren't paying attention? He paused, emotion thick in his voice. I'm proud of my Wharton MBA. But it pales in comparison to what you've accomplished. You're not the family disappointment. You're the family genius. And I'm sorry it took us so long to see it. The table raised their glasses in a toast, this time to me. As we left the restaurant an hour later, my family lingering to ask questions about my research, I felt something shift. Maybe they'd never fully understand my path. Maybe they'd always wish I'd finished my Harvard degree in the traditional way. But they were trying. And that was a start. My phone buzzed with another email from the Nobel Committee. My calendar reminded me about tomorrow's meeting with the FDA about accelerated approval for our Alzheimer's treatment. My research team needed feedback on the latest clinical trial protocols. I had work to do. Lives to save. Diseases to cure. And finally, a family that was beginning to see me for who I actually was. The dropout who changed medicine. The disappointment who won the Nobel Prize. The failure who built a $3.1 billion company that saved 150,000 lives. Not bad for someone who never finished her undergraduate degree. Not bad at all.